So you got it? You got it pulled up? Your picture of the person that means the most to you? Okay, so switch, Andrew. This is my picture. If I had to choose a picture that means the most to me, this is my family. It's a very small family. That's my mom, my partner, and my 2 kids. So I just wanted to ask you, while we're talking today, just remember that person or persons in your picture. Because I want you to digest the information, because this information is for you, but for you to prepare for that person or persons. All right? Next slide, Andrew. All right, again, my name is Alva Stewart. I am the owner of Stewart Funeral Services. My physical building is in Brooklyn, but I service all over New York. I also service all counties and countries, meaning if someone loses a loved one and they want their loved one to be sent back home, I can facilitate that. If someone passes away in Queens, Long Island, I can service them. I am a New York State licensed funeral director, and today I am not selling funerals. I am not selling funerals. I'm not here to sell funerals. I'm here to educate, because I am tired. I am tired of every day serving people like myself, and not that I'm tired of serving them. I'm glad to be of service to them. But I see so many times where people, because of the lack of pre-planning, they grieve 3 times. They grieve their loved one, they grieve financially, and they grieve legally. And that's why I brought 2 other professionals with me. Tonette Williams, she's going to speak later. She's a lawyer, attorney. And then Rudy Souffrant, he's a financial planner. Okay, so I wanted to start with a video to use as a reference for this conversation today. So just take a look at the screen. It's not showing? Okay, it could go louder and start it over. He's going to restart.
Your claim that you had an arrangement with your brother so that your brother would pay half of the premiums on the life insurance policy. You made yourself the guardian of your father. Correct. And you also spent money for a lawyer to do that. And you picked the life insurance policy, and you want your brother to pay half the premiums on that policy while you were paying for them. That's part of your lawsuit. Unfortunately, according to your brother, you didn't read the fine print on the policy, and when your father died, either you didn't read the fine print on the policy or you didn't fill it out accurately because the insurance company declined to pay out on the policy because he had a pre-existing condition. So far, is that correct?
where are they? Who are they? A family. Where are they? Where are they? In court.
Why?
Yes.
Okay, a policy that didn't pay out. And how are they resolving it? How are they resolving it? Asking the judge. They have to go to court, right? So you getting why I'm saying it's good to pre-plan? All right, next slide. So the lawyer and the financial planner will speak with reference to that. So I'm going to speak with reference to my field. This happens every day, all day. These scenarios where families are, thrown into grief and not only have to deal with a loved one passing, but family disputes. They had to go to court. You could do the next slide. Okay, so I wanted to tell you that these things could be all avoided with just a simple plan, a pre-plan. A pre-plan has 3 parts. You can sit with a funeral home, like myself, and we could do a basic plan or an extensive plan. A basic plan where, for example, I have one of the first reasons why you should pre-plan. You want to ease the burden on your family. If your wishes are unknown when you die, they will be faced with making difficult decisions at a very trying time. When someone loses a loved one, you basically have a week to plan everything, and you can't make that much informed decisions. Do your family know if you will want to be cremated or buried? Do your family know if you will want to be sent back home to your home country? Will they know if you would want an open casket or closed casket? These are little things that cause big arguments in the funeral home. Some families cannot agree on if they should have a wooden casket, a metal casket. There's confusion and disagreements that will occur. You can avoid this by having a plan. The next reason, you want to assume the financial responsibility for your family. Imagine asking that person that you just located in the picture. For example, me, my 2 kids, they're 3 years old and 4 years old. Imagine me not coming home one day and it's all on them if I didn't put a plan in place. The people you leave behind, you don't want them to, have to scratch their head. How are we going to take care of this? The next one. Even if you're leaving go back to the other one. Right. So even if you're leaving behind sufficient money, will your survivors be able to access it? Again, the attorney will speak more about this. You may have money in a bank account, but is it readily available to, cover the funeral expenses? Funeral insurance, life insurance and funeral trusts are some financial planning options. And again, if you speak with a funeral home, they can tell you about the funeral trust. Rudy will talk more about the life insurance. So you want to make sure you are setting up where you are the person taking care of that burden and not your family. Next slide. You want your final wishes to be followed. You want that if your request is to have a red dress on, you want that if you want a red casket, you want your wishes to be implemented, not your family. They might not know what you will want at that time. So if you have specific preference for the disposition of your remains, like you may want a cremation versus burial, it's good to express that in the funeral plan. And that's what we do at the funeral home. We write down everything that you want, not what someone else will want. Your music, your readings, your obituary, you are in charge of that. You may not want a funeral ceremony. How would your family know that? right? And then lastly, how many of you like to save money? Right? You like to save money, right? That's one of the big benefits of doing a pre-plan. By arranging and preparing for your funeral now, you lock in today's prices. The only thing, like the cemetery, which the funeral home doesn't have control of, is the one that can vary, but you lock in today's prices. So families that sit with me and plan a farewell service, 10 years from now, I have to honor it. Even though inflation and everything and prices go up, you lock in today's prices. So you save money. The funds will always be yours. They're always portable and always safe, yes. So when people plan for their funeral with me, I do not keep the money. It has to go to an interest-bearing trust. And yes, when the time comes, it's portable. You can, if you move down south, you could transfer the plan, and it's safe. At the time of need, your loved ones will be spared financial stress, knowing that you put everything in place, especially the money part. Next slide. Right, funeral costs. Some people always ask this question. Funeral costs are consistently rising every year. Every year the cemetery sends us an update, they're going up in their prices. It's going up, going up. Generally, funeral providers like funeral homes and cemeteries, they need the payment up front. You cannot go to a cemetery and say, I'll pay $100 every month for a service that's going on today. They need their money up front. So that could be overwhelming for families who only have 5 days to plan a funeral. So a burial, average burial is $10,000 to $15,000. If it's a mausoleum, it's even more. Cremations start at $2,000 to $6,000. $2,000 is a direct cremation, meaning there's no viewing, there's no service. That's the least expensive. Again, would you want that? Would you want that you pass away and your loved ones don't have access to your money, so they have to try to get $2,000 together, but there's no service? You go straight from the place of death straight to the crematory. Next slide. Right, so paying for the funeral, and my associates will go into this further. You have the option of life insurance. You have the option of prepaying funeral costs. So when families sit with me and they choose what they want, we have a cost that they can work towards. So if when you pre-plan or you prepay, how much ever you can afford, you give in. I have families that pay $100 a month. Some $20 whenever she gets it. But guess what? She's working towards that amount. She knows it. So she knows that she wants to, at the end, but God willing, she wants that it's paid off before her demise. Direct savings. I know we love saving money in the bank, but again, will your family have direct access to it? Most accounts, if your name is not next to the loved one's name, the bank will not give you that money. No matter what you say, they will not give you that money unless you have something from the courts. And you come to plan a funeral in 7 days, and the courts are telling you that this might take 3 months, but you have someone there that you need to be buried as soon as possible. You don't have time to wait on that account. And the other thing is funeral trust. I explained this before, where when someone wants to pay full or pay an amount, we send it to an interest-bearing trust fund, and every month it is updated with the total. And again, it creates a picture where you can see and work towards the goal of covering your funeral costs. All right? Next slide. Okay, before I introduce my colleague, I just want to say a true story. Now, last year, I filed for my mom to come to the USA, and she became a green card holder last year. So she went back home, and I said the next thing on the list, I have to do her medicals. Then I'm going to do her legal planning. So I brought her here in August to do the medicals. And, you know, I was going through this all by myself, trying to deal with Medicaid and everything. And it took longer than I thought, because up until December, she didn't go back home yet. Because this is a process. I didn't even know it. So, as luck would have it, we came to church here, December 31st, and my mom fell outside there. We all know. She fell. But she got up because we didn't think anything of it. By the time Mom went home, she was in so much pain. We took her to the urgent care and the doctor, and when that doctor told me that my mom's hip was broken, I was in shock, because we saw her fall. She got up. I didn't think it was that serious. But she's been in the rehab now for like 6 weeks, and she needed a lot of different medical care. And most of the people that I spoke to, the medical team, they wanted to know who am I and if I have power of attorney over her. They would not talk to me. I said, I'm my mother's only child, the only person she has here. And I know more about, you know, the system here, so I was comfortable making the decisions. But I had to call up my friend Tonette, who was a lawyer, and say, remember, I was going to plan to do this before, but I was forced then to get power of attorney documents from her so that I can make decisions on behalf of my mom. Remember, I was planning to do it, but it just happened that you don't know. You don't know what will happen. So I say that to say, although I was planning to do it, I had to do it before the time. And I'm just saying to you, my people, just put things in order so that you don't have to go through things like this. Because it's medically for me right now, but I'm so glad, and I want to thank the church for the calls. Reverend Boyce, he came before the surgery. He was there. He was there. And thank you for the calls and everything. But that was a true story that we never know. And if we can do better by planning, it saves the family a lot. Thank you so much. Tonette?
Good morning, church. Thank you so much for letting me spend some time with you this morning. I have a sort of presentation, but I just want to speak genuinely and from the heart to finish off with Alva's story, because we had a professional relationship, and as she said, we did talk about doing something for her mother at some point. And then out of nowhere, I got this text saying, my mother had this accident and I need so-and-so. And I just want to speak from the heart and say that this is so much of what has motivated me to choose this area of law, because it is in times of emergency that people call, and fortunately this time I was able to help. And it is a good feeling. It is a good feeling to be able to help good people. So again, Alva, thank you for having me here today. So as I said, my name is Tonette Williams. I am a planner by nature and an attorney by training. So you combine those things together and I've become an estate planning attorney. I call it what I do, life and legacy planning. And when I say plan, I mean a few things. I mean P, protect, your L, legacy, your A, assets, and your name. By legacy, I don't just mean the things that you own. I mean your values, your principles, what it is that you want to pass down to your loved ones in your community. When I talk about assets, I do mean physical things. So I'm talking about the physical manifestations of whatever gifts God has blessed you with and what you have able to accumulate in this life. And by name, I mean, how will you be remembered? When people say your name, what will they think of? If we go back to the video that we started with of the Judge Judy episode, I am going to guarantee you that although the father that they were talking about would have been many things to these children in their lifetime. He was the person that taught them how to ride a bike. He was the person that took them to school. He was the person that provided for them. However, the reality is the first thing they will probably think of is the fact that they ended up in court trying to fight over and figure out how they were going to pay for his funeral. That is not what he wanted, I guarantee you. I don't know this man, but I know that. Part of this process, as Alva said, is making sure that your loved ones do not go through an additional and unnecessary turmoil. The other thing I want to point out is that because illness and death comes unexpectedly, when we do have to address them, it's so easy to make mistakes, and they can have significant legal and financial consequences, which is what that clip was about. It was about his daughter and his son trying to figure out how to deal with the consequences of having to do what appears to have been crisis planning. So this is another reason to get ahead. Can we get the next slide, please? Okay. So the question is, do I need a plan? I'm just going to read this very quickly. One of the areas we talk about is incapacity. Accidents and illnesses are predictable in their unpredictability. But until that time, you have the power to decide who will advocate for you and when you can't do it for yourself, and how to make it easy for them. Who have I been able to help? Other than someone like Alva, I sat with a family recently who has an aunt who's now in the early stages of dementia. She is someone that is unmarried and does not have any children. It is a situation that many people will find themselves in, and she is fortunate that she is still at a stage where she's able to gather her family and help them by telling them how it is that she wants to be cared for and the things that matter to her. She's able to tell them where her money is, where her accounts are, and she's able to say to them, I have this event that I do every year where I help with a back-to-school planning. I want to be able to go and at least sit in that and be a part of that event for as long as possible. And she asked her niece if she would be willing to also continue when she is no longer able to. This is not just about money. It's about passing on values. Who have I been unable to help? I recently had a 95-year-old client who wanted to do his planning. Unfortunately, I was unable to help him. He had been under the care of what appears to be a very kind and generous and competent nurse since 2009. And I was called to his home, which I sometimes do with elderly clients. And I sat down and I said, Mr. Day, I hear you wanted to make some decisions today. Mr. Day is not only hard of hearing, but he's hard of understanding at this point. And this is the scene. The nurse is literally leaning over the bed to him, kind of yelling in his ears, saying, Mr. Day, isn't it true that you told me you wanted to give me that building of yours on Clawson Avenue? Now, in my heart of hearts, I do believe that Mr. Day wanted to provide for this woman in some way. But at that point, it is too late for me to help him do that. 95 is a long time to wait to do this. Guardianship is another area that comes up. Every parent of a minor child needs a plan. This is where you can best protect what is important to you. I've been able to help a young mother, well, I should say she has a young child. She's probably approaching 40 at this point. who is very diligent and very conscientious. She does not make a lot of income, but she has amassed about $2.5 million in life insurance policy. She has a 2-year-old. If anything happened to her, we have to find a way to make sure that the court is not involved in the process of doling out that money to her child. So we come up with a plan, and not only financial, we come up with something I call a kids protection plan, which I recommend to, again, anyone that has a minor child, because that kids protection plan is basically an instruction to the person that you, as a parent, choose to be your child's guardian. And it says, this is what's important. This is the church I want my child raised in. This is the school I want my child to attend. This is what I want her to understand about responsibility and money. Those aren't legal documents. Those are heart documents. Those are raising your child documents, and you have the chance to do that. I've been unable to help a 4 and a 10-year-old whose 56-year-old father died unexpectedly. He had a life insurance policy, but he named his father as the beneficiary. The father is deceased. The policy was out of date, and what ended up happening is they have to go through a court process in order to get that money in the hands of his 2 children. I say I was unable to help them because unfortunately these court processes are expensive, and they did not have the money at the time. Can we have the next slide? Something else to think about is probate court. Now, in the video, we were in Judge Judy's court. I don't know, maybe some of us want to be in Judge Judy's court. We definitely don't want to be in probate court. Alva mentioned waiting 3 months to get access to the account. It's not 3 months. It's maybe 9 months in New York City. Probate court is a long and lengthy and expensive process. I've been able to help a daughter who suddenly lost her 80-year-old mother who owned a co-op apartment in Brooklyn. Who have I also been unable to help? A daughter who suddenly lost her 80-year-old mother who owned a co-op apartment in Brooklyn. It's the same person. And I say I was able to help her because, yes, I started the process, but the process was expensive, and it led to her having to pay the carrying charges for at least 9 months in an apartment that she will never, ever live in. This is about $800 out of her account every month before the court will even start the process of allowing her to sell this apartment. It's expensive and it's unnecessary. The other things we talk about is wills versus trusts. There's a lot of talk about trusts now, but you should be first educated about that. I've had a retired MTA worker who wanted to leave his properties to grandchildren rather than to his spouse or his children. That's unusual, but that's his choice. And he was able to do that by setting up a trust for his family. I've been unable to help a teacher's aide approaching a retirement who is one of 5 siblings that was counting on being able to continue living in the home of her late mother, but her siblings want to sell. There's nothing she can do at that point because unfortunately there was no will in place. So the siblings will overrule her, and she will unfortunately lose what she thought was going to be her home for the rest of her life. I'm standing here and I'm realizing I'm telling you some of horror stories, but I hope you also hear the stories of people who took action and were able to get the things done, whether it's their values, their money, by planning ahead of time. Can we have the next slide, please? So the answer to, do I need a plan, is always, always yes. Yes, you need a plan. I've talked about different income levels, family situations, and there is something that we need to do wherever we are in life, wherever our economic situation is. It may be something like incapacity planning, like Alva spoke about. It may be something where you do have multiple $million-dollar assets, as my 95-year-old client has. Whatever situation you are in life, there's definitely action you can take in order to mitigate any harm and basic strain that your family may have to deal with. don't decide to do nothing. If you learn nothing else from me today, it is this: you should do something. Start the conversation. I am, of course, available for anyone that has questions afterwards. We can do a 50-minute consultation. You can be a part of my email list to get more information. My cards will be in the back. Very important. Please take it. Please, I will, be here after the service. Please come up and talk to me. But don't do nothing. My goal is to help educate you so that what you leave your family is a gift and not a mess. So please, take me up on my offer. I'm happy to be here, and I will hand it over to our next speaker. There you go.
All right, good morning, members. How are you? I first want to thank Alva for inviting me here to get the opportunity to speak with you. Your Reverend Rice, thank you very much for allowing us to be able to present to your parishioners. And for those folks who are not aware of who I am, just to give you, thank you, appreciate it. All right. Just to give you a little bit of background of, it works? Yeah, just to give you a little bit of background of who I am. My name is Rudy Souffrant. I am a child of two Haitian immigrants who came into this country over 50 years ago and worked very hard for themselves, but were not able to take advantage of the opportunities that this country had offered outside of being able to take care of their children. And of course, my parents, I do love them and I thank them so much for everything that they've done. But one of the things that I did notice about my parents was that they had no assets, they had no money, they had no savings, they had no retirement after working so many years. Of course, I listened to them. They said, make sure you go to school, get a good education, so you get a good job with benefits. I'm sure everyone probably have told their children or someone that at some point, correct? And I did that. I went to school, I got my degree. It was in international transportation, logistics, and science, and then decided to start in my master's in information system technology. Soon after graduating out of school, what I realized was that college only prepared me to be someone's servant. College prepared me to work for somebody else's business, to build somebody else's family future, and to build somebody else's legacy. And since my parents came to this country for an opportunity, I thought to myself, maybe I would have to be the one to take advantage of that opportunity. So at 21 years young, I was looking for ways to be able to take care of my family, to build something for ourselves. I stumbled into the financial industry during 2008. I was actually at church, and everybody, if you were around in 2008, you remember what happened with the subprime mortgage. A lot of people lost their homes. A lot of people did not understand how mortgages worked, how these balloon mortgages operated. And I didn't understand. I looked up to a lot of these individuals who were much older than me, and they had no clue on how the financial system worked when it came onto their housing. And I thought to myself that if they don't understand how their mortgages work, what other areas in life do most people who look like us don't understand? So I held a seminar inside of church, invited a couple of companies over to speak, and I came to find that we didn't have any education on how debt works, on how retirement works, on how insurances work, on how the stock market work, but yet we're all working for money but have no clue on how it actually works. We know how to pay our bills when we have it. We know how to spend some when we have it. But how do we actually prepare for our future with a lack of education? And that I found to be a problem. So I decided that I was going to help. And that led me down to a journey over 16 years to learning on how to teach our people about their finances. Today, I would say that I'm good enough to work in any Wall Street house in America, but that was never my passion when I got into this industry. My passion was to teach brown and black families on how to build something for themselves. And now I have the opportunity that I've done this. I have about 18 different brokerages around the United States. And my focus is to see how far and how many families we can actually save. So when you hear the conversation today by Tonette and by Alva about preparation, of course, death is something that happens in a moment, and it does sting, because anybody who's lost someone close in life know that emotionally, it doesn't matter how much money you get, how much is left behind, that sting of death still hurts. But I think that it is important that we do prepare. As you heard in the story of what happened in Judge Judy with this family, I think the biggest challenge is because there was a lack of education on their part. I think this is the three challenges that we have. Number one, in our school system, we're not taught about finances. We're taught about math. We're taught about addition, plus, minus. We're taught about algebra, trigonometry, geometry, some of the stuff we don't even. But we're not taught the basics of finances. We're not taught how does my 401k work. We're not taught how do I pick my stocks out. We're not taught how to what type of insurances to actually sign up for. The second thing, we're not taught on how to plan. We'll plan for vacations in life, we'll plan for weddings in life, we'll plan for parties in life, but we don't make plan for our financial future. Matter of fact, most of us leave it up to our jobs to actually plan our financial future for ourselves and our family. And if you know anything, your job has no care about your family's finances. And then the last thing is that we don't have guidance when it comes on to our finances. It's funny, we'll have hairdressers, we'll have barbers, we have nail technicians, we have a doctor, but we don't have someone who actually helps us in making decisions when it comes on to our finances and what products we should participate in and what products we should not participate in. So as you saw in this example here of this family, the key thing that Judge Judy said was that you did not read the fine prints. And I would probably say many of us are probably involved in financial products that we do not know the fine prints of what we have. Let's take, for example, the topic was life insurance. I think I find that most families are in three categories. Number one, they don't have any. And there are some that say, I will save for it. But let's be honest, how many of us have tried to save for something and sure enough, we end up taking that money, touching that money, or lending that money out to somebody? So that's not a good option to actually think to prepare for your last expenses. Number two, most people find themselves in a position where they don't have enough. And unfortunately, that's just a lack of education on what the purpose of insurance is for. See, we all understand the purpose of insurance. See, when you want to protect something, you buy insurance, don't you? Right? If you have a car, right, a brand new car, you wouldn't dare drive without insurance, would you? Because you wouldn't want to get into an accident and have to pay for the person's car in your car, true or false? If we buy a house, that's probably one of the biggest expenses that we're going to have, that we're going to create, the biggest debt that we're going to create for ourselves. We wouldn't dare not have insurance for that, would we? Or what about health insurance? You ever tried having a baby in this country? Do you guys know that it costs an average of $100,000 to have a child? Now, some of you don't know that bill because you didn't have to pay it because why? You had health insurance. And you were thankful for that, weren't you? But when it comes to life insurance, unfortunately, we think of death when we come to life insurance. And although that is part of it, taking care of your final expense, but it is an asset that you're leaving behind to your family. It's an opportunity for you to buy money so that you can leave something behind for the next generation. I always find it when I think about the Jewish families and the turmoil that they went through, a lot of their wealth was actually built on using insurances. But they understood the type that they should have had. Sometimes we buy them on our jobs and we think, well, that's sufficient. And many a times we don't understand how the job insurance works. I'll give you an experience close to home. In 2021, my brother was actually murdered. And he was just assisting a friend who had some trouble, and there was just some bad people around. So when, good thing I understood the industry, when I called around to find out what service he had, because I said as a young man, any young person, I say sign up as many things as you can on the job, but make sure you understand what you're signing up for. So he signed up, and one of the companies called and said, well, how did your brother pass away? And I said to them, well, why would that matter how they pass away? He's gone. It shouldn't matter. Your contract says that you will pay in the behalf of his passing. Well, did he pass by an accident? I was like, well, no, it's not an accident. Somebody killed him. Oh, well, if it's not an accident, then we're not paying. Right? For many of us, sometimes we think, oh, well, I have 200, I have 500,000 on the job, but don't realize that you have an accidental insurance. And here's the challenge, is that you sign up for something through the job took out a contract with someone else who you never met, you don't know the details of it, and then you put a beneficiary who doesn't know your job and who doesn't know the contract that you signed. So then when something happens, your family is going through something emotionally, and somebody's giving them all the red tape that they have to go through, and what do you think they say? Forget about it. And they give up. So it's so important that we understand what we pay for, especially when it comes to a product like that, because Alva, most of us will sign up for it, pay for it, and never look at it again. And your challenge is that many insurances do change over time because of the type that you've actually purchased. So one of the things to do educate is important is understanding on how to do an audit of what you have. And you should do an audit of almost anything that you're paying money into for a long period of time that could be an asset. You do an audit of your 401k, 403b, 457s. You do an audit of your insurances. And how often should you do these audits? Well, how often do you do your taxes? So then you should do an audit once a year of these things. Because just in case, if there's a change, you already catch it early. Does that make sense? So I do believe that this topic needs to be had, this conversation needs to be had, especially in our families. Because at the end of the day, how many of you have ever met your mother's or father's financial advisor? Most of us never, right? You ask yourself, how many of us know our great-great-grandfathers or grandmothers? Most of us won't know. Why? Because they never left anything behind. So a passing doesn't have to just be a remorseful time for a family, but it could be a way that you can pass on, like Tonette said, a gift to your family. but you have to understand the present that you're leaving behind for them. Because if you don't, you may end up just leaving them debt or an expense. Does that make sense? So my information is here. You can please take a picture of it or scan the QR code. I'm going to help you understand I am a no-fee-based advisor, which means that a person does not pay me for the advice that we actually give. There are other companies that pay me for that. But the reason why I do this is because I want more of us to become more financially independent, financially secure, and understand what we are involved in and what we're paying for. So you can feel free to text me. You can feel free, there's a questionnaire that's on there. I'll have you on my email list and also text list where we could send you out information about currently what's going on as far as the financial world. And if you have any other questions pertaining anything financial, you can also feel free to reach out to me. Thank you very much again, Reverend. Thank you very much, Alva, and thank you for having me, guys.
Well, Bernard is there with the microphone. Are there any questions that we all have to ask any of the three personnel concerning getting your house in order that can serve the congregation? But if you want to ask them their phone numbers, that's something you can ask them at the end. Is there anything that you have that you think can serve the congregation well by your questions?
Don't be shy. Don't be shy. Don't bite.
Bernard? Going once, going twice. The peace of the Lord be always with you.
With you.